I rented the C70 for a few days and was able to use it on several different kinds of shoots. I don't feel like I have the hours and experience with it to genuinely review it, so I will not be talking about all the typical features I normally would in a full-on review. That said, I learned a number of things about the camera that proved useful to me in understanding it and whether or not I would consider buying it, so hopefully this is helpful for you. I'll be all over the place here, so let's just start out with talking about gimbal work. This thing flies exceptionally well on a gimbal. It's pretty crazy to have this level of a cinema camera on a gimbal. And I'm not just talking about image quality and specs, because DSLRs and mirrorless cameras can compete pretty well with this camera when it comes to what is flyable on a gimbal. Having something though that captures this level of image quality and audio quality is huge. Now when using a gimbal, I don't typically need to capture audio. However, the shoot that I was on required following a plant manager around a manufacturing facility as he gave us a tour and talked about the people and capabilities they had. As a side note, I don't have any BTS footage or C70 footage from this shoot because of the proprietary nature of the environment I was in and the NDA that I signed for the project, so sorry about that. But back to gimbaling. Things that separate a true cinema camera from a mirrorless or DSLR camera on a gimbal are features like internal ND or pro audio supports. Let's talk about audio for lots of moments. I feel like a lot of creators are getting sloppy on the audio side of things these days, either using camera's internal audio or clipping a lavalier on the outside of a shirt, plugging any microphone in with any port on any capture settings at any levels. That may be fine for smartphones or social media reels that are forgotten as quickly as they're consumed, but at the pro level, this is unacceptable. Hopefully, creators and videographers will focus on this more moving forward. So, back to my shoot on the manufacturing tour. Quality audio options would have been very limited on a mirrorless camera because they only allow for a 1/8 inch microphone jack, not XLR, and honestly, I personally don't trust audio that isn't XLR on professional shoots. Maybe that's just me. In that same vein, I originally thought I would be bothered by the mini XLR ports rather than full-size XLR on the C70. To my surprise, I found out that not only did I not care about this at all, but I actually really enjoyed the mini XLR. Their smaller size was simply more convenient, and I didn't notice a reduction in the audio quality. As long as the camera has XLR of any type, I'm happy. Maybe you have a beef with it, as I thought I would, but I actually didn't. The C70 also allows for a lot of audio control options with manual gain control, mic and line inputs, things like that mirrorless and DSLR cameras don't have. Now that I'm stuck on the topic of audio, I discovered a quirk that typically I wouldn't run into with this camera, but became problematic for me a couple of times on this shoot. When filming in either MP4 codec, I was only able to get audio channels 1 and 2. If I wanted to gain access to audio channels 3 and 4, I had to film in XFAVC. Audio channels 1 and 2 are the mini XLR ports. So running one shotgun mic and one lavalier mic to these ports respectively should mean you should have great audio no problem when filming MP4. So what? I mean, that's how I would film all the time. Well, the big deal was due to my negligence, I only happened to have one mini XLR adapter with me on all of my shoots, so I was forced to plug the lavalier into the phone jack, which in turn required me filming in XFAVC. Again, probably hardly worth mentioning since you should have 2 mini XLR adapters if you're getting this camera, but since it was an issue for me, I thought I'd mention it. Now, what were we talking about originally? Sorry, gimbal work. Man, see, this is not an official review. With the C70, I was able to rig it up with a wireless lav on top and mini XLR that into the camera. This was an incredibly stripped down rig, but it was all I needed for full quality experience, and that's the beauty of what this camera can do when it comes to gimbaled video. You get the most pro features in the quickest and most stripped down rig possible. I will say that the strap on the hand grip conflicted with the particular gimbal that I was working on, and I needed to undo the bottom of it in order to balance it properly. Not a huge deal, but if I needed to go back and forth quickly between gimbal and handheld, this could have been inconvenient. This may depend on the type of model gimbal that you choose to fly with. I don't know. Another little thing that you've heard everywhere, yes, the placement of the tripod threads makes it fairly dorky looking on a tripod. At the end of the day, this is nothing, but hey, I'm just telling you things that stood out to me when using the camera, and this was one of them. The vertical video design is definitely nice. Putting the top handle on the side and filming vertically was super comfortable and convenient. Now I rarely ever film vertically, but I just happen to have a shoot that required it, and if that's your jam, this camera will make that super easy. The loose and fidgety LCD screen that doesn't fully close or lock is real. Again, I know this is a small and realistically insignificant con to a camera, but it did jump out at me right away and bothered me every time I packed it and unpacked it. It just feels cheap and broken, or at least on the verge of breaking. These days, image quality is not really important in cinema cameras. What I mean by that is all cinema cameras made in the 2020s and beyond will have fantastic image quality that you can't go wrong with. The big differentiator amongst cameras is ergonomics, menus, usability, file types and sizes, things like that, not the image quality anymore. If you know how to light and compose, any modern cinema camera is going to spit out gorgeous images. So let's get into some of these. When it comes to menu navigation, I loved that one scrolling wheel jumped through the menu sections while the other scrolling wheel moved through the submenus of those sections, if that makes sense. That made navigation super quick and convenient. That said, the joystick was incredibly frustrating to use. A good third to half the time I tried to either toggle it in a direction or press it in to select something, it wouldn't respond. This just made settings changes more time consuming and problematic for me. Now this is important for this particular camera especially. See, the C300 Mark III, which is the same camera but in a traditional cinema camera body form factor, has a lot of these important menu changes as designated buttons on the body of the camera. So it's a lot easier to change particular things in the middle of a shoot. The form factor of the C70 obviously loses many of these quick buttons and forces you into the menus more frequently. As such, it would be really nice to have a reliable and proper working menu joystick. Small complaints, but as I say, it's a little stuff. Whatever. Moving on. Canon has made a brilliant decision in their last 4 cinema camera releases. 2 practically identical cameras in 2 different form factors. A 4K Super 35 cinema camera in the C70 and C300 Mark III, and a 6K full-frame cinema camera in the C80 and C400. As such, I really see the C70 as being primarily a B camera for the C300 Mark III on multi-camera shoots, or a fantastic camera to travel with, do gimbal work, or film vertical content. This is what this camera was intentionally designed to do, and it does these 4 things extremely well. In terms of the form factor and usability, it's fine for a DSLR style camera, but I prefer the traditional box style cinema camera. I like the layout, size, weight, custom buttons of those cameras, and the looks for that matter, much more than the photo camera layout and menu heavy method of changing settings. When filming documentaries and corporate videos, either handheld or on a tripod, I personally find that dedicated buttons are the faster, more intuitive, and more convenient option. When gimbaling, menus make more sense. When it comes to bit rates and file sizes, Canon always does a great job of packaging feature-rich files into small sizes. Yes, at 4K 10-bit or raw light, these files will be far bigger than what you get off a C100 Mark II that you all know I have, but no duh. 128 gigabytes for an hour of 4K 10-bit 422 long GOP footage is hefty, coming from an HD 8-bit world, but honestly, it's not that bad for 4K 10-bit specs. That's 8 hours for 1 terabyte of hard drive space at long GOP recording. I know I personally recommend long GOP for most projects because of the file size savings with no perceptible quality loss in most situations. But be prepared to invest in more hard drives if you're moving up to this from an HD 8-bit world. It's quite a jump, but honestly, it's well worth it in my book, especially as hard drives get less and less expensive. Now, for the most part, the top handle that comes with the C70 is fantastic. It feels great. I love that it has both a shotgun mic grip and a shoe mount on the top, which I use all the time to mount my lavalier mic receiver. But I will say that I absolutely love a record button on top of a top handle grip like the C100 Mark II or C300 Mark II, and this one does not have that. Of all the record buttons on a camera, I think I use the top handle one the most, so that's unfortunate with the C70. Overall impressions from using this camera as little as I did? Great camera, but probably not one I will ever get. Its best use cases are as a travel camera, a gimbal camera, a B camera for the C300 Mark III. In all of these, It's one of the best cameras you can get for those roles. But when it comes to the filmmaking that I do the most, i.e. single camera operator, documentary and corporate videography, a traditional box style cinema camera makes a lot more sense. It's not the style camera for me, but honestly, it's an incredibly powerful workhorse in a tiny form factor priced nowadays at a bargain that does a lot of videographers really good. And I mean, really good. I see the appeal, but for me, I found it wanting. Honestly, not really wanting in what it was designed for, but wanting because the projects I typically am involved in require a differently designed camera. So basically, my complaint is, this camera wasn't designed for me, boo-hoo-hoo. So take that with a boatload of salt. It's designed for those who travel, do gimbal work, multi-camera shoots, and or vertical videos. If that's you, stop watching this right now and order it using the affiliate link in the description below, please. Well, I hope this video was helpful for you because though I won't be seeing you in the next one, you're sure to see me. Rough.